So I'm wondering if we had that there, if we would just turn it at an angle and make it more of a...
Like that always, sort of.
Yeah.
I mean, I could do it to clean his shoes. Just feel very glamorous though.
Well, you've got that space, you just be comfortable,
yeah.
really.
Just, alright, let's go. Alright, so the first memory I have.
So Jess, tell me about yourself. How's your childhood?
It was okay.
Mate. Excellent. Well, that's this for this week. I'll see you next week.
It's always a weird place to start that.
What first memory you had?
No, it's a big question, isn't it? How was your childhood? I don't think anyone actually asked that.
It's also the fact that it's a sort of aggressive technique insofar as like, okay, let's dig up all of these painful memories.
Yeah, no, I get the point. It's just a terrible question.
But it's not always a good idea. You don't necessarily need to be like, let's just make you re-experience all this.
If you're lying on a sofa, then you'll probably have a slightly Freudian psychoanalytic therapist, and they will always go back to your childhood.
But that's my point. So that practice itself is a bit reductionist because you're there like, oh, you're gonna, you know what? I'm gonna charge you for the privilege of you telling me, reliving all your painful memories, and start crying and break down in front of me.
You don't have to break down.
No, I feel
that. The idea
that.
is you see a behaviour there which you're recreating in your adult life, and if you can resolve the issue, then. But there's schools of thought with counselling and therapy as there is with anything.
I mean, go on.
Well, psychoanalysis is one form.
Mm-hmm.
You're testing me a little bit here.
Yeah.
You could look at CBT.
Mm-hmm.
And look at the links between your thought cycles and behaviour and trying to change those. You could look at it sort of from a, I'm trying to remember the names of everything, humanist perspective. There's lots of types and they've all got names and everything is different. Like there isn't, like counselling isn't one thing.
No. Yeah, there's subcategories within counselling, or different approaches rather.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I don't think many people would necessarily go in for psychoanalysis these days as much because, well, it had its moment, but it's a bit, it is saying everything's rooted in the childhood and that's not always the case.
Yeah. You ready, Max? We're doing a bit.
Yeah, also I was reading the BBC, so it never actually made a fucking point. It was just slagging them off.
Just
basically.
waffled on, yeah.
Yeah. It never came to a reason of why, like what the delays were.
Yeah. Well.
I should have expected that reading the BBC.
Okay, we'll all come back to this though.
Right, let's go.
Hello and welcome to episode 18 of the Just Discourse Podcast with your hosts Max Smith and Matt Harpe. We're joined again by Jess Brooks. Say hello, Jess.
So I have to.
You just yes.
You've got to say something.
I will say something.
There you go. Oh yeah, obviously everyone will have heard the little diatribe beforehand, which was good. They'll come back and forth. So with the Freudian psychoanalysis, it's also outdated because it was originally created by a German scientist psychiatrist whose entire function or the reason he was employed was to help middle class women achieve orgasm.
Really?
Yeah. Yes.
No,
It
he
then
was meant
evolved
to help
from
them.
them. Yeah.
He was meant to help them get over these nervous disorders, and the way they decided did that was through stimulation.
What? So they
Matt,
would sit there,
lie
in a
there,
chair,
lie there,
and they would stimulate themselves in front of it.
No, he would do it for them.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Was that Freud himself, or was he just related?
To begin with, it was Freud, and then obviously it evolved from there.
So not a bad job, to be fair.
No, not at all. But this,
Well, he didn't
Depending
get
on
much
your
out of it.
clients.
but this is where the whole nonsense of hysteria came from, where women are hysterical, and they were like, "Oh, it's just because they're not coming," and you're like,
I don't think that was the argument they made.
in a real shorthand form, it was. Because we learned about this in psychology, saying that this is
I
what
don't
Freud
think
did.
they were saying, oh, they just need an orgasm. I think that was just the way they decided it fixed it.
Jess, are you trying to say that women don't deserve orgasms? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely.
Hey, I had to clarify. The people want to know, okay? But CBT as a counselling technique it's like comparing CBT psychoanalysis is like comparing positive conditioning to negative conditioning. You
Just
want to
confirm what CBT is for.
cognitive behavioural therapy.
Yes.
That's the way it is.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Okay. Oh yes, of course. But yeah, you'd want to go down the more positive road because whilst it takes longer, you obviously get the better long-lasting effects from it.
I disagree.
Go on. Please,
They're
disagree
not
with me.
that easily compared.
Right.
One of them is saying that maybe the issues you have in your life now are caused by something that happened in your childhood, and the way that you're, whatever stage you're fixated at.
And is that why most people go for the CBT, is it?
No, that would be the psychoanalysis. And then CBT would be you've got an unhealthy cycle of thoughts, behaviour that is feeding into each other.
So the psychoanalysis
Is the childhood.
identifies the requirement for the CBT, is it?
I wouldn't put them together.
No, so it's person has an issue with, I don't know, spiders or something. Psychoanalysis will say, oh, it's because a spider scared you when you were a kid. Let's find out when that was, why that was, and work from there. And by recognising that, you can then overcome it. CBT would say you're scared of spiders because you keep telling yourself you're scared of spiders.
Interesting, yeah.
And then they would maybe go through changing your behaviour. So maybe, I don't know, you're looking at pictures of spiders and then trying to teach yourself different thoughts to tell yourself and trying to
Spiders
find
with
intrusive
smiles,
thoughts.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Well, we discussed it before, haven't we, about the cycles, about how people tend to get into patterns and cycles and then end up, as you say, like fear a certain thing because of a certain situation that's happened.
Yeah.
And then they go into that cycle of every time they come up into contact with it, they go through that fear cycle of, stepping away and shitting their pants, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like you and skydiving.
Yes.
That sounds fairly logical to me.
Yes. Well, so for Jess, obviously you don't know. Well, unless you listen to the podcast, which
She obviously does. Listen,
Obviously does.
come on, Jess, why don't you tell us about it?
Max tells him.
I've always been like a thrill seeker myself. So like as soon as I became, I think, do you have to be 18 to do a skydive? Yeah. So as soon as I became 18, I was like, look, I want to do a skydive. So I did a skydive, thinking, yeah, it's gonna be fucking sick. Like, I'm gonna have so much fun. It's gonna be great. I'm gonna be skydiving all the time. Blah, blah, blah.
That's how I'm going to get to work.
Yeah, exactly. And I did a skydive, and the parachute got twisted. It was only like one twist, so we managed to get out of it. But I've seen like the videos on YouTube of them like spiraling. So as soon as we were like spiraling, I was thinking, okay, this isn't supposed to happen. And then luckily, because it was just one twist, he sort of like did whatever he did, and like we came out of it. And then obviously I totally forgot about it because we're in the middle of the sky, so I was really enjoying that part of it. Then we hit the ground, and then he said to the guy who like meets you on the ground, "Oh, we've got a bit of a twist on then," and then it all sort of came back to me. And then from there, I was like, "Look, I enjoyed my time skydiving. It was a great thrill, and I would love to do it again, but I'm probably not going to."
That's sensible.
Yeah, I think that's more sensible
terrifying.
than what you're saying about trauma.
Yeah, well, that's skydiving is like an acute trauma as opposed to a chronic one, whereas chronic would be like a consistent one over time.
But I would love to do it again if I can guarantee that won't happen, but you can't. So.
No, you can't. I think it's one of those things that is a once in a lifetime experience that just sort of ticks the box, and you're like, if I survived it, I'm not risking it, I'm not doing that again.
Well,
yeah, I'm bored with that.
Yeah.
As I said before, I didn't want it to be a once in a lifetime experience. I wanted it to be something that I did as a thrill seeker to enjoy. But
Maybe try paragliding or something instead.
well, I don't know. That's probably worse, isn't it? You haven't got a parachute.
Yeah,
But are you as high up?
I don't think you're
Actually,
probably
I don't
not
know.
quite as high up.
You'd have to get a decent.
I'd be wearing a
height.
parachute if I was paragliding.
Yeah.
Probably
They
3 or 4.
probably do.
One on each limb.
Yeah. If it doesn't go right, just get rid of that one.
Yeah, that order.
Start
Yeah.
again.
Yeah, I wonder. So that is. Do you think that's because it just wasn't what you expected, or do you think you've actually realised, oh, I actually don't need these thrills at that high, that extreme high level of adrenaline?
I think it's a number of things. I thought the danger aspect as a young guy was a lot less than it possibly could have been. I thought, oh, that rarely ever happens. Like it's only 1 in 100,000 or something like that, so I'd
Yeah.
take that risk. And it just happened to be on literally the first go I'd had at it that happened. So I thought, the probability is 100% for me because I've only done it once. So the probability of it happening was 100%. So I thought, is it worth taking that risk again?
Isn't it weird the way we do that? The stats
Yeah.
are exactly the same no matter how many times you do it.
Exactly, yeah.
You'll tell yourself what's happened to me once, it might happen again.
Exactly. That's exactly the reason. And that's one of the only sort of situations in my life where I could probably put down to, you know, that negative experience. It's sort of been like, okay, that's cool. I really wanted to do this, but I'm not going to do it again. Just for the safety aspect, I guess. And
Sensible.
yeah, you could say sensible, yeah, but I'd never been sensible up until that point, so that's why it was so shocking. And
Turning point.
difficult to
There's a lot of those
difficult
going
to
on
deal
there.
with mentally. But yeah, I think, you know, I've had a go at it now. I really enjoyed it, and I probably won't tempt fate again.
That's fascinating. Maybe you had to reach that realization of mortality to realize that, oh, I don't actually need this. Because there is something about when you're younger, you feel invincible.
Yeah,
Like,
of course.
yeah, I used to go down hills without brakes on my bike. Just one thing about it.
Yeah. Well,
I went down Surrey Road and just went right down there, straight across the junction.
straight across the road.
Straight across.
You
Idiot.
really shouldn't be alive, I
No.
swear.
Oh, there's so many instances that mean that I should not be alive.
Well, I think the fear aspect of that experience did make it, you know, multiplied the joy from it.
Yeah.
You know, tenfold. Because you've obviously got the fear aspect anyway. Because like as soon as you fall out of the plane, like when I first fell out, I thought, yeah, I'm gonna fucking love this. It's gonna be great. Fell out, and I was literally like trying to grab onto something. Obviously, there's nothing there to grab. So after about 10 seconds, you have to just be like, all right,
Yeah.
just let it happen to you.
Yeah, I'll live or I'll die.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I was like, but at that point, you're like, oh, I've got a parachute, it'll be fine. And obviously, when that happened, it was like, shit, my fucking heart was going like, ah. And then obviously, when he rectified the problem, it was like, fuck, that could have been 10 times worse. Right now, I'm going to enjoy this experience even more.
Yeah.
Just as we said before, is there has to be an element of danger. Well, there might not have to be, but most of the time, the element of danger is what makes things fun and enjoyable. When everything's there's too many rules and regulations, it makes things boring and it sucks all the fun and joy out of it, doesn't it?
Maybe danger is the wrong word. Maybe risk is better. Because you're doing something. I would say it's probably a parallel to doing something you shouldn't be doing.
Yeah, it definitely applies to your extreme sports.
Yeah.
But maybe not to everything.
Yeah.
There's
No,
probably
but
lots of fun things that aren't really risky.
Like,
Well,
give us a few examples if you can think of them. Because I can't. I'm sure there probably are them.
Yeah, I can't think of
I
anything.
can't think of anything.
Are we talking about activities or just things that are fun and enjoyable?
In general.
You know, sitting down and watching a film is fun and enjoyable. Probably not that risky.
Okay, so if we're going on spectrums of like, this is jumping out of a plane,
Yeah,
this is watching a film.
that's what I say. Like, all that stuff you're
Okay.
saying applies to maybe extreme sports, but there's a lot of things that are fun and enjoyable that are not risky.
I would argue, is that fun? It's enjoyable.
Mm.
Would you say it was fun though? Because they are different things.
Yeah, I would say different things. Because if you were to have, I don't know, if you were to meet someone on a night out and have like an instant crazy connection with them and have unprotected sex, like that's, in theory, really fun and enjoyable, but that's also really risky as well.
Yeah.
For sort of STDs, pregnancy, etc.
Yeah, we know what the risks are, Matt. You don't.
Oh, except for everyone else, not for
Oh,
us.
okay.
Yeah, except for everyone else on there.
So, I mean, sex is still fun and enjoyable.
Yeah.
It doesn't always have to be a risk.
No, I'm saying in this
Depends how
specific.
far you take it.
I'm saying in this specific. Yeah, exactly.
When she's choking you out.
Yeah, exactly. Shh, not
Just
in
wait till the
public.
blood's out.
Not in public, guys. Okay. But I'm saying specifically from the example of it's a stranger, is maybe out, or going out, getting absolutely shit faced in town. That's really fun and enjoyable.
Is it?
While you're drunk, yes.
Is it?
I think it's definitely more of a male thing as well. I don't know if there's again the element of danger. Obviously, if females get,
Maybe.
they
What? As in we get absolutely blackout drunk, wander around by ourselves in town.
yeah,
Or you
and
just
we're
want to have more, like,
yeah.
take more risks.
we're likely to be safer than a female who's blackout drunk.
But, which is antithetical to what the reality is, because by women not doing that, they are actually safer, and they are being more safe than we are. We're being more reckless, but that's that's men in general. Men take way more risks overall because they can afford to.
Exactly. Well, if we go out and get hammered,
yeah.
I mean, there are worse things that could happen, but the most likely thing to happen is you're gonna have a fight.
Yeah.
Now, especially when you've had a few beers, you're like, oh, fuck it. That'd
Yeah.
be great fun.
Yeah.
Risky, but it's fun.
That's super risky as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, it's like we were talking about last time. If you get in a fight and bad thing's going to happen is you're going to be beaten up, or worst thing's going to happen is you're going to beat someone else up and accidentally kill them because they hit their head on the ground.
Yeah.
That's real bad.
Then you've ruined
Your life completely, and you kill someone.
everything you work for.
So there's that level of risk.
So we still haven't come up with anything.
Okay, let's think what we've got. Roller coasters.
Element of risk though.
Yeah.
That's the whole fear thing, is that you could just go flying off. The thing could open up.
What about?
Go on.
God, I'm coming up. They sound so boring.
Come on, let's do this.
Like just playing games and what if you're playing poker? Poker's fun. You don't have to necessarily put any money in.
But the risk is that you're losing money, and
Well,
it's
if you're
more
not-
enjoyable the more money you.
I think it's still
No,
enjoyable
sorry.
without money.
Let me stop using the word enjoyable because we've
Yeah.
factored that out. It'll be more fun.
Yeah.
When you've got the opportunity to win money.
More exciting.
I've played poker before without money.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter, because if you win or lose, who cares?
I just like being able to win against him more than anything.
How often
That's
does that
fun.
happen?
We don't play poker very often, but I'd say neither of us win very often.
It really depends on the game. If it's poker, yeah, I'll do alright. If it's like Scrabble, don't even get me started. She did a fucking word that was
I took a
76 points.
I think it was
I
54.
mean, you're asking the highly dyslexic person about Scrabble. I think I've played it twice in my life.
Mate, I got beaten just within an inch of my life on Scrabble. It was horrible. But it just kept on going as well. I was like, Jesus Christ. I thought I knew words. Apparently not.
You do know words.
Yeah, it's not big words or anything.
Anyway, so board games are as exciting as...
Fucking. Ooh, fucking. While playing a board game. There we go. It's a new one. You wouldn't get it. No, I feel like the tiles just go everywhere.
Yeah.
What kind of? It depends on the board
And
game.
I'm sure you'd get bored of Scrabble if you're in the middle of, on the job.
Yeah. On the job. Look, whatever you do as your part-time job, mate. We're not here to judge, okay?
What if you did try to do Operation or Buckaroo or something?
Buckaroo.
I do that anyway.
You're like, get off me.
No, that's one of the things, isn't it? It's when you're with whatever your partner, Buckaroo is a game you play, and you. I've never done this, by the way, because I
What?
think it's bang out.
Go on.
But the game is to call whoever you're with someone else's name, and then hold on for dear life, and that's Buckaroo. So obviously she's going to be bucking you off.
Oh,
you're
that's
try and carry on.
so funny. Well, yeah, and more of a challenge is if she's on top and you do that, you got to try and clamp her down, like, don't go anywhere.
Basically, yeah.
Oh, mate, that's so funny.
I haven't been brave enough ever to.
No,
try
of course,
that.
because you punch her in the face.
Yeah,
Mate, that sounds like an Urban Dictionary sex move, that one.
I think it is. Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny.
It is a dangerous game when your most delicate part of your body is sort of uncovered.
Oh yeah, tell me about it. Yeah, she'd get off you and just punch you straight in the nuts.
But the risk there will be high,
Yeah,
but it will be fun
it would be. It's
while it lasted, and you
I
don't get
argue
injured.
it'd be more fun to just have sex.
Yeah.
enjoyable. Yeah.
This is
Maybe
when
not
you
fun.
appropriately bring it back in again.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. That's funny. It's a great story to tell your mates. Like, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Probably you wouldn't find it funny to tell your friends,
No.
but yeah, you and I telling each other would be fucking
Yeah.
hilarious.
And
Right, well, if you ever do it to me, I'm just going to do it back.
Look,
I think you'll dislike it more than I will.
let's face it. If I do it to you, I'm calling you his name. Okay.
that will be worse.
It will be
No.
It'll be Max or Nathan.
No, she just was like, yeah, I get it.
Again. But I think
fighting against other men in your life.
you did touch on a point there. Is I think for, and I guess it's probably more of a male aspect, is we in situations like that we tend to enjoy or get something out of talking to our mates about dangerous situations.
Yeah.
Whereas I think it's the, you obviously I get your opinion on this because I'm not female. Well, last time I checked anyway.
Oh.
Well, sometimes I pretend to be just.
Thank you. Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Just so you don't get weird. But I think the on the opposite side of the spectrum, do females tend to get together and like not brag but like talk about dangerous situations as if they were in fun, not enjoyable?
I don't know. I suppose there is a difference in what is determined as fun. I mean, because we can talk about dangerous situations, and normally it's in respect to this thing happened, and I'm surprised I made it out alive.
Mm-hmm.
But
is that a common conversation?
depends who you're talking to.
Is that a common conversation within your friends?
Depends who I'm talking to.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, that is fair. Well, you don't have to use a name, but you obviously can give an example.
Just, what was the one the other day? It was bad. Like someone just, like they were out on a night out, a couple of my friends in London, and this guy just sort of tagged on to the group, and I think...
What, random?
Yeah, and even though my friend was like, sort of trying to shut it down and make it clear she had a boyfriend, she wasn't interested, he basically followed them all the way back, like on the tube, then on the bus, and then, I don't know, was it on the bus? Like, so she told the conductor, like the person at the station.
And was it just a group of ladies?
This was just two of them at this point.
Jesus.
Oh, fuck me, yeah.
And they told the ticket person that he was following them, and he said, well, I can't do anything to stop you, like stop him like leaving or crossing the barrier, but if he keeps following you, like come back, and then we can like try and call the police. And just that weird, that is dangerous, and that is not fun.
That is weird.
What was the end result?
Like I think he like kept walking down the road. They ended up like going back on themselves, and I think I can't remember if they ended up just getting into a taxi for like this ridiculously short walk. But just one of those weird circumstances of someone's just attached themselves to you on a night out, and they every time she was saying like I've got a boyfriend, he was like, oh yeah, just sort of smiling and thinking it's all part of a game, and she's like, you're not coming back to my house, and he's like, no I'm not, but he's like winking and like insinuating things, and it's bizarre.
How long was this going on for?
I don't know at what point during the night this person appeared, but probably not that long. But to follow them from wherever they were back to where they live on the tube is quite a long journey. Right. It's a weird thing.
We've determined then that when there's a dangerous situation, females tend to not revel in it as if it's exciting.
Yeah, to say if you almost had a fight or something like threatening happened, you would take a thrill in that, probably.
Yeah. And that was what I wanted to make.
Whereas for us it feels a bit more sinister, I suppose.
Is we'd be like, if we had a fight or something, we'd be like, fuck, that was a bit close there, wasn't it? But it's fucking good fun though, wasn't it?
Yeah, and we bond from it as well.
Exactly, yeah.
With that, so I'm trying to work out, were they, when he attached himself, did he attach them to just the two of them, or did he attach
it was a group at the time.
And were there guys in that group at the time?
I don't know.
I would argue probably not.
Yeah.
One of the guys would have.
Because
I know her boyfriend wasn't there.
Because we've had situations where that's happened when we've been on a night out, and like as a mixed group, and like some dude's trying to attach, or they'll be like hovering around. So I always tap my mates, and we'll just start pointing.
I know.
So,
I've seen you do
and
it.
one of the guys would just turn around and be like, "Alright, mate,
fuck off." Yeah. So my question is, for that to have continued for so long, is it impossible for any of their dude friends to have been there?
It seems
because guys would shut it down immediately.
And I know it was just the two of them walking back, or getting the tube back on their own. So definitely no other men around at that point.
So then, what is that? Why did they not shut down immediately?
I think they tried to do it, but when you have to try to do it in a friendly way, if you're
Why?
aggressive, because it risks them becoming aggressive back at you.
For a female, it's like if we started getting aggressive to a guy who's way bigger than us, we've got to expect him to turn around and just twat us. It's what I've always said to my sister is, men should never hit women, right? We all know that. They should never do that.
People should
However,
never hit people. Unless
it's
it's
good fun though sometimes. But
Yeah, Max gets a bit lippy sometimes. He's got a sore man.
yeah. But so my point is,
It's funny. See?
men should never hit women. However,
Agreed.
you can't expect a man not to hit you. So, as you said, Jess, you've got to be sort of more friendly in your approach of not, telling them to jog on basically, because you can turn around and get aggressive with them, and they could either hit you or,
When someone is physically stronger than you can't go in with probably what you want to say.
Yeah.
You've got to play the odds, really.
And from the male side, we would play those fucking odds, wouldn't we? We'd go, it's big and let's fuck it.
Yeah.
Especially
all day.
This would be an achievement, like
all day, every day.
Yeah. But obviously,
considering you know how to fight, you would feel comfortable enough probably in your ability.
True. Which then goes to something that I believe very strongly, is that everyone should know how to defend themselves.
yes.
Everyone should know how to fight.
That would be a useful thing to teach in schools as well.
Yeah, but they should do that. I'm actually surprised they don't.
They-
Stop hockey or something and start doing self-defense instead.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think I wonder why that is. That they haven't got like a mandatory martial art that's taught. Like if every
Maybe
school
it's
taught
because the teachers
jiu-jitsu.
aren't trained in it.
But you just get a martial arts teacher in.
It would be a budget thing, wouldn't it?
I don't think we have a problem with money. It's just the
Yeah.
allocation of it.
It's the mismanagement
Yeah.
of that money.
Okay, well you guys go sort that out.
Cool.
And then we'll
Back in a bit.
fight.
Happily, yeah.
That would be fascinating to have a mandatory in-house martial arts instructor in every school.
Is there enough? There wouldn't be probably enough to
Maybe from a
keep them
certain.
employed, but
Maybe not.
Maybe
trying
not
to work
primary
out-
school, but like secondary school.
Secondary schools, yeah, secondary schools integrated because you've got 1,000+ students. For primary school, we do like how I learned, which was at the village hall or at the school after school time.
yeah, maybe having like the after-school clubs and
Yeah.
options.
Yeah.
But then,
Like-
making it something that you have to do
Mhm.
when you're older.
Yeah, you have to because it's a
It would be useful.
and it's a fantastic way to eradicate bullying,
It also teaches
Physical
self-control as
bullying.
well, doesn't it?
physical bullying, yeah.
Yeah.
And that as well, because it seems counterintuitive, but if you get a bully and teach them how to fight, that actually reduces the likelihood of them being physical bullies, because you're instilling the discipline in them and an actual understanding of violence in that respect.
Yeah. And what you're doing when you are violent towards someone else.
Yeah, because depending on the class, but like my class, how I grew up, past a certain level, when you had a basic competence, they were ruthless and merciless with you. So you'd walk in every day knowing that I'm going to get thrown into the ground for an hour.
Yeah.
And they didn't give a crap. You just keep going. And it just teaches you by you being thrown into the ground to then get back up. So know you're going to get thrown into the ground to then get back up and repeat that cycle for an hour. It teaches you something. And it's analogous. It adds a humility, and it's analogous for life as well.
But it's like with most bullies, there's obviously an element of arrogance in the fact that they think that I can do what I want,
Yeah.
and therefore they do it, probably because they haven't. I know a lot of bullies, it tends to be like an external thing where someone's like bullying them or something, so they push it on down the line.
It's typically problems at home, so they then
Yeah.
bully kids at school.
But if they know that whoever they're bullying is going to knock them out or will stand up a good fight, they're less likely to do it, aren't
Less likely to beat people up, maybe.
they? Yeah. Anyway, we still haven't come up with anything, a dangerous situation that women would go back and revel to their female friends about.
Well, if you're looking at
So is that the contrast?
risk-taking in extreme sports, yeah, that's something that I think applies to everyone who enjoys that kind of thing. Like, I love a roller coaster. I haven't done many. I'm not skydiving, so I can tell you that. No falling for me.
What about drag racing?
That would be fun.
There you go, that's a good one.
That's dangerous.
That is
Yeah.
very dangerous.
That would be great though.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
I think there is just... It's these sort of organised things. It's like I'm not going to go race a really fast car on the streets, like Fast and Furious style, but I'll do it in a place where it's designed to be done, and it will be fun.
A lot less fun though than if you're doing it on the streets.
Maybe a lot less thrilling potentially, but maybe if I was to go and do it recreationally for a while, I'd feel confident enough to do it on the streets. But
so are we deducing then that the thrill of things comes from fear?
Thrill and fear definitely are linked. But I don't know if it follows that all fun things have to have an element of thrill.
Okay, let's look from the other side of the spectrum then. Is there anything that is extremely safe that isn't boring?
Okay, what are your examples?
Well, I think every example I can come up with is extremely boring.
Or the ones I think of the risky.
What is extremely safe and extremely boring? So I know what kind of things you're thinking about.
What about a nice relaxing bubble bath?
Why is that boring? It's relaxing.
It's not fun though, is it? It's enjoyable, but it's not fun. Sleeping. Enjoyable. It's not very fun.
I don't know. What happened to you at 1:30 this morning?
Oh, my whoop strap. So when I'm sleeping, my heart rate's like 60, 70.
That's pretty high, no?
Yeah, I was recovering from. I had a workout with Robbie yesterday. Jesus Christ, animal. Everything hurts. And
then you did the workout.
Then we did the workout. And it was in the shower. Don't worry about it. Like 1:05 this morning, my heart rate went to 135.
You having a nightmare?
I must have been. I did.
Having a really great time in his dream.
Yeah, really good. I'm sorry, Jess.
Do you wank in your sleep?
Yep. Yeah, it's autonomic. I can't help it, you know. But I looked at it, I was like, what the fuck was that? Because I was like, that's like me running up and down the stairs a couple of times. I was like, what the hell is this? But I was like, I did have a nightmare about being late for work, so that might have done it. So I was like, but yeah, 1:35, lying like prone asleep. I was like, that's fucking stupid. I'm in fucking zone 2 cardio when I'm in bed.
And you haven't had the jab?
No, exactly, I know. Bizarre.
That is bizarre.
Saying that when I did have COVID, my recovery is anywhere from 65% to 95%.
Mm-hmm.
When I had COVID, 2.
Yeah, I've never seen you so exhausted.
2% recovery?
2% recovery, even after sleeping for 12 hours.
And what's that based on, like 2% recovery an hour?
It's based, that's the whole time I was asleep, I got 2% recovery, when usually it's in the green above 70.
Jesus Christ.
But that was, obviously, that was a fever dream. I went to another astral plane and came back, kind of thing. It's kind of fun, I must say. But then just actually being awake and with no energy was not good.
Yeah.
No, I'm glad you touched on that. Can either of you two astral project?
Not yet, I'm working on it. Yeah.
I've never tried.
I can't do it, but I've done a lot of reading about it and it really annoys me that I can't.
It's because...
Especially when I'm trying so hard.
It's the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy approach of how to fly. You've got to fly, but not try and fly. You've got to just fall over and just accidentally fly. It's the same thing. It's like lucid dreaming. You've got to lucid dream without trying to lucid dream.
Yeah.
You've got to like loosely grasp the idea of it, as opposed to if you grab hold of it, it goes away.
Yeah. And I find there have been a couple of times where I have become conscious in my dreams and then I wake up.
Yeah.
As soon as I'm conscious in the dream, I wake up.
Yeah.
Which is extremely frustrating because I wake up and I'm like, fuck's sake, I nearly had it.
Yeah. Yeah, when you,
And it won't happen again for like another week or two.
A week? Well, it takes years for me to get to that sort of state. You ever lucid dreamt?
Not that I can remember, really.
So that's a no.
Yeah.
It's pretty marked, but as Max was saying, you just kind of, as soon as you realise, like, oh shit, I'm dreaming, you kind of wake up.
Yeah. And I've never done it in a point where you can consciously move about in it. As I said, as soon as I become conscious, that's when I wake up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the closest you get is when you're sort of that half awake stage where you're still dreaming but there's something from outside, as Sophie used to. I remember this the other day, it made me so glad I moved out. Her alarm would go off on her phone and she'd sleep through it nearly every day. And it would be just going along this little tune and I would hear it and it would like get into my dreams. I'd be like, there's music going on, and then it's that sort of, there's a second where you recognise, oh, I know that's Sophie's alarm going off, but I'm still in a dream, and then you wake up and
Well,
you have to get up and go and turn it off for her.
And like, do you hear the alarm why you're in the dream stuff,
Mm.
and then
Sort of
a bit like
seeps in slowly.
what's it called?
Inception.
And yeah, it's a bit like Inception. So they play that music.
And it sort of just brings you back
Brings
to
you out,
reality.
yeah.
But
No, yeah. That one, yeah. It's a French song.
Oh, yeah.
yeah, that wasn't quite what the words.
Oh,
Something like that.
sounded right to me. Yeah. As an avid French speaker, that's how I hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're a disappointment to your last name.
Fuck. I mean, you're not wrong, and also to my genetic heritage because I know nothing about it. I can't speak it, can't read it.
Well, yeah. So where did the de la Harpe come from?
Right, strap in. So,
This is good because they did so much research into it.
so my aunt's husband, so a white guy, married into the family. He was fascinated about the
Why
name
did you say a white guy?
because my family are not white.
Divide up
Racist.
slowly.
Yes, I am racist.
I'm offended.
Fuck white people. Anyway, so present company accepted. So there you go. So
that won't be flagged. But if I said it,
well, fuck yeah, you can say fuck white people if you want.
no.
Or Sri Lankans, that works.
Yeah.
So he was fascinated about the name and the heritage. So he went all the way back and did the family tree of it. So the family started in 1473 in
That's quite far away.
crazy
Isn't it
far back
impressive?
in Switzerland, and we were called the Laup, meaning of the mountains, Swiss Alps. And one of the relatives there moved to France, married the guy who created all the roads leading up to the Arc de Triomphe in Paris. And the name kind of evolved to de la Harpe because the Swiss contract their sentences and their words to be de Laup, so le and Alp are one word. But he expanded it to be de, la, and then I'm not sure why it went from Alp to Harp, maybe because she was a musician or something. That's why they had the 3 words there. And then he named one of the roads up to the Arc de Triomphe Rue de la Harpe after her, which is sick, so that's my
So
family.
when I go there,
Yeah.
I know that's you.
One of those 8, one of those is me, is mine. And so they were in there for a few hundred years, moved to Holland, moved to Belgium, moved to wherever. When the English Empire expanded out, part of the conquered nations joined their army and went with them. So Holland went with them, marched all the way through India, all the way to Sri Lanka, fought there, and as the English Empire went back, a few of them were like, you know what, I like it, I'm going to stay here, and just set up roots. So they were there for like 120 years or something. Made loads of families, and then Civil War happened in the 60s, and they were like, nope, to hell with this, and all the family picked up and buggered off either to Australia or South Africa, except for some god-awful reason, my granddad, who came to Slough. For some reason.
I mean, other than the choice of Slough, I think we're all quite glad he did.
Yeah, well, you know.
I mean, he had 3 options and he chose.
He chose the shittest out of all 3 of them. Yeah, for a reason. But he was some form of engineer. He built bridges and stuff. So he came over here. So my dad's 2 twin older sisters were born. Dad was born a year later, and then you had his 2 other brothers after that.
Nice.
There you go.
So you've actually got an interesting story.
Yeah, and one of the 2 of the little bits. There's a small island in Lake Geneva, which is the family island, and it's probably about half the size of this room. But it's in Lake Geneva. You're like, that's cool.
What's it called?
Ile de l'Alpe or something. There you go. And the other one is the Swiss Constitution of Neutrality. One of the people that wrote it was one of my ancestors. So he's part of the reason that Switzerland was like, nope, not getting involved in shit. Except for guarding the Vatican for some reason.
And that's
God
kind of the way you live your life now.
Exactly, just not get involved. Yeah, the Vatican's private police, which is effectively an army, is called the Swiss Guard.
Mm-hmm.
I've always wondered about that.
Yeah, so I'm guessing they probably were either like really devout Catholics from Switzerland, and then went, you know what, we're going to guard the Pope forever, and moved to the Vatican, or the other way around, and they went, oh, we need you, not come here, kind of thing. But it's bizarre little.
Maybe because they had some free people considering they were being neutral and not fighting any other wars.
Yeah, but yeah, it's fascinating that you've got this bizarre little tiny sovereign state in the middle of this giant city.
Mm-hmm.
And
like London.
Kind of, yeah. Imagine Westminster was its own country.
Well, I think the city of London is,
Yeah,
isn't it?
if not actually smaller than that actually.
But it's, yeah, Vatican City is even smaller.
Really tiny. Have you guys ever been?
Never been, no. I'd love to go.
100% go.
I want to travel around Italy.
Yeah, Rome is a must. You have to go to Rome. Just blows your mind. You have an idea of what the Colosseum is, but till you actually physically see it, you cannot comprehend how big it is.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. If you take a contemporary stadium, it somehow seems bigger than like the Emirates or Wembley. It appears bigger because it's got that weight of history behind it. It's physically not as big, but it seems bigger than that because you're just like, what in the Christ is this?
But no, it's the ancestry thing is something that I don't know if it's my age now that I've started to really take an interest in. Now I know my grandma, she looked quite far back into it, but I need to dig out the details of that. But because I don't know anything about it, I assume there was nothing very exciting in my family tree. Otherwise, I'm sure we'd heard about it.
I you might find something.
Well, that's what I
it
wanna know.
doesn't appeal, doesn't it?
I want to know why no one in my family before my old man has ever done anything.
What have you been doing?
Yeah. We've been here for millions of years. What have you been doing?
I would love if you managed to trace your family. You're like, lazy bastard.
Yeah.
Adam and Eve.
Basically, that's how it goes, yeah. Peasant.
Yeah.
Adam and Eve.
Yeah. Well, that is everyone, isn't it? Are you guys the lost bloodline of Jesus Christ?
Yes, basically.
Okay, that makes sense.
Well,
Yeah, you've been lying
honestly,
low.
for me, being a Smith, so much harder to look back because
Yeah.
there's so many of us.
My dad's side's Smith
Yeah.
and we're Brooks, and I think they're both a bit too common for this to be easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
But
Smith and
Like
Jones.
my
weren't
mum's dad was a LeMay. He always said he had a French
Cool.
stepfather, I think, or father.
they?
Somewhere.
It was a stepfather that kind of ends there, doesn't it?
There was, I forget which way around it is. He might have had a French grandfather and then he changed his name to his stepfather's, which was Brooks or something like that.
Mm.
But then my mum's surname was also Smith, so
Oh God.
yeah.
There's too many of us.
Yeah.
Actually, I think not enough. I'm going to create some more.
Mate, that video you sent me was nuts.
Which one?
The pastor on Dr. Phil.
Yeah, that's crazy, isn't it?
So it's a video he sent me. There's this guy. You know what Dr. Phil is, right? There's a guy on it who's a African American pastor, and people was like, "Tell me about yourself." And the guy's like, "Oh, you know, I'm a preacher, blah blah blah." He said, "We need to have more white babies. More white babies need to be born. There's not enough of them being born because all the other races just destroy and burn." And everyone's like, "What are you talking about?" And he's just like, every other race just like destroys everything. White people build stuff and they create stuff, and everyone was like, "What the fuck are you saying?"
Yeah.
That was madness. That was.
We obviously has some information that we don't have.
Well, considering numbers came from
Arabic, isn't it?
yes, Arabic was where numbers came from, and Christ knows what the Egyptians were doing. Something right?
But didn't most things come from Egyptian?
Yeah, I mean, well, Africa's the motherland of everyone.
Motherland.
Yeah. But yeah, such an insane statement to make.
That was weird.
Particularly from a black guy as well.
Yeah. I'd like to meet him to find out what's going through his head.
He's the church Kevin Samuels.
Mate, I seriously think we should start Kevin Samuels up again.
Oh my
Because
god.
no one's filled the void.
Do you have any idea how much hate we're going to get if we do Kevin Samuels?
Who cares? That was brilliant.
True. Kevin Samuels was a dating coach who would
Like
have
a life coach dating coach.
Yeah, he was a life and dating coach, and he'd say, "Call in, talk to me, tell me what your problems are, and I'll see if I can help
They
you."
do this all on YouTube live.
All YouTube and everything. And he was a stylist. He was a professional designer and all sorts of stuff. And he'd get these women calling in saying, "Hi, I'm I'm unhappy as how I am. I'm 4'11". I'm 400 pounds or whatever, and he'd be like, "Oh, okay, so you want this and that for a man, okay?" And he's like, "Okay." So you're, and she's like comparing herself to like these supermodels, and for some reason she's comparing herself to Rihanna and Beyonce and stuff, and she's like, "Well, I don't understand why I can't get like a man like me." And he's like, "Okay."
The first question he'd always ask is, right, rate yourself between 1 and 10.
Yeah.
And what? Almost 100% of the women would say between 8 and 10.
Yeah, no. Well, the most common one was just say 10, and he's like, what? And he's like, what are you talking about? So bear in mind, these people have called him for his advice, and he's just like, I don't understand why you're saying these things about yourself. Because first of all, 10 is absurd because no one is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
But he's just like,
10.
yeah, he's like, I don't understand why you're asking me for help when you're just living in this delusion. Because he's like, I can't help you. I'm saying in a very nice way. How he says it is just eviscerate, but it's very funny.
Well, as an example, he would go like a couple of times. He would say, rate yourself between 1 and 10, and she'd say 9, and he'd go, okay, how much do you weigh? And she'd say 300 pounds or something like that, and he'd be like, okay, goodbye. And he'd just put the phone down.
He was like, vicious, but he'd do that, but then people still keep calling him for the same thing.
Yeah, but these people are not representative of an actual population.
Very true.
How many people do you know who actually rate themselves so highly?
Exactly. It's very true. It's that level of delusion that is just fascinating to look at.
Delusion, or it was planned.
True. Could be, because it makes very good content, because it was very entertaining.
But then his experience, if he's not actually helping these people, he's not showing his worth as a dating coach, is he? So he wouldn't do it to be, well, he may have done it a couple of times just for the content, but really he only shows his worth as a dating coach by improving these people.
Did he?
For everyone else, yes.
Did
he actually give good advice?
Yeah, it was very successful. It was very good.
And it was usually the adverse for men, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The men would call up and they'd rate themselves lower, and then again he would always ask height, age, and weight, and then profession and stuff like that as well.
Yeah, but he'd go a bit more depth. He'd talk about like diet and sleep and all that sort of stuff as well.
And the men tend to be, as I said, they'd rate themselves lower, and he'd be like, look, you'd probably put you 1 point higher than that or something like that. But you need to do this, 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 and this.
Yeah.
And this will increase you to whatever, blah blah blah.
But the points that stood out the most were people when he challenged them or something, and they just wouldn't change.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't go, actually, you know what, right, I need to rate myself a little bit higher. He'd be like, I'm still going to say I'm a 10 in everything. And he's just like, well, I can't help you because you're not living in reality.
Okay.
You need to watch it. We've like, they're like 2-3 hour sessions, and we're just cutting out tiny little snippets.
To be fair, I'll find like the little clips for it because they are interesting.
What was your original point around this?
It was, if we were to do, Max was saying we should do the same thing.
Well, have people call in and then tell them how to improve themselves?
Yeah.
Well, we wouldn't be able to do that at this stage because
we don't know shit.
We're all going to examine it. One day, and it would be fun, I think.
We could, or if we did it specifically as like a joking premise.
Yeah.
It would have to be because
if you did
the
it,
things you're actually qualified to give advice on would be limited.
Yes.
I mean,
you could obviously comment on fitness, exercise,
Yeah.
anything that you know. By the sounds of it, you could definitely comment on business, and they're both very useful elements, but you can't go around
Well, this is how we
commenting on everything.
Well, this is how we start off when we were
So we
discussing
just got
this.
shot down by Jess.
Yeah, I know. I mean, to be fair, it's good for us, mate. We need a reset now.
Exactly, yeah.
This is how we started off anyway. When Max first spoke to me, we were discussing like what it is that we could offer. And we'd have a combined aspect of business and fitness. And obviously, we both have our own crossover into each of them, but it got the more specialty that way. And then we'd have obviously guests on who would add different perspectives, as and when we could, because otherwise we're just two dickheads sat around talking. So, which we are anyway. We know we are, which is fine. That's cool.
That's part of the fun.
It is part of the fun
because it's dangerous.
Yeah.
Maybe not
Got a
fun.
thrill.
Enjoyable.
It is weirdly enjoyable because afterwards you're just like, this is very fun.
Yeah.
Once you get into the flow of it.
You do like this though. You like to have in-depth conversations about really interesting, varied, deep topics.
Yeah.
I mean, I think a lot of people do, but you especially do. I think.
Well, you do as well.
It opens your mind.
It absolutely does, and with
Also challenge you to control your emotions as well.
and
Which a lot of people aren't very good at.
and for me, which is a constant learning thing, is it challenges my ideas. So it either, if I get a challenge from either yourself or you, from something that I've said, it either makes me back it up with evidence and reason, or it makes me go, actually, yeah, you know what, I don't actually know what I'm talking about. Okay, and just let go of it. Because, like I spoke about before, 10 years ago, when I was 17, 18, I was tied to my ideas. If I was ever wrong, I would consider it like character assassination, because I would just, my ego was just so entwined about me being correct.
And yet it was something you said in psychology once that changed the way I think about offering opinions.
Go on.
I think I always...
They are like ourselves?
I'm very poignant.
I think I would always feel like I had to give an opinion, because if I admitted I didn't know something, then that's sort of, I don't know, something to avoid. You didn't want to admit you didn't know something. And I remember one psychology lesson, I can't remember what the question was. Miss Hardy asked what you thought about a situation, something that was in the news, and you said that you didn't know enough about it to offer an opinion. And I was like, damn, it's okay not to know things, and to explain that you would want more information before you can make your mind up. Isn't that weird that that's something that probably changed the way I think about everything?
Well, I'm very flattered.
But that's another reason why having conversations like this helps us all to grow, because there's certain aspects that you might know more than I, and vice versa. And through having these conversations, it opens your mind up to different possibilities and perspectives on situations that you may not have ever considered.
I think as well, something that's slightly counterintuitive is it is incredibly healthy to have conversations with people you disagree with.
Yes.
Like you and I sometimes get into a little bit of a confirmation bias, a little bit of a feedback loop, because we are very similar in how we think. Whereas then if we inject someone like Jess or even Max last week, we were saying things and Max was just like, nah, nonsense, and then he'd say why, and you're like, oh yeah, good point. Or even, obviously like some of the things that I've said here before, you've, after the podcast, been like, what the hell are you talking about, or this and this. Or we've got friends of ours who say the same thing about things we said here. One of our friends is not happy with you, it's very funny.
What subject was this about?
The iPhone thing.
Yeah, I don't know if it was iPhone specifically.
It's alright.
It's the way you clip them up.
It's alright. I know, I do all but I was,
know,
again, as soon as I started seeing all that, I called you, I was just cackling. I was like, this is so fun.
Brilliant.
But it's brilliant. It's the idea that you should. I will get that person here. It will happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
but it's the point
Good, I'm
that
excited.
it will happen.
We'll fight it out.
It will. But the point being that you can have these discussions, maybe get the heat in the moment, but then chill, and it's all good. It's fine. You can still carry on with the point, because getting emotional for a small amount of time is actually quite beneficial, because then you get your passion out, you explain your point. But as long as you can then reset and understand, it's all good. We're just talking back and forth. We're not married to ideas. These ideas are nothing to, no hill to die on. It's all good. I think it's the understanding of, like us three as a group haven't spent a huge amount of time together, so it's also an understanding of gauging each individual's character.
Yeah.
Like, I know you really well, I know you really well. You two don't know each other really well in that perspective. So as long as you know someone's character, then whatever they say, you're like, I know at heart they're a good person.
Mm-hmm.
So which is obviously I know that. Whereas you two are looking at each other like, where are they coming from?
Well, I think a lot of people, they pick up certain beliefs in life, don't they? And then they build their opinions around those beliefs, and then they attach emotion to those opinions. And then when someone sort of counters that or challenges it, they tend to react emotionally because they're so attached to what they believe to be true. And we've spoken about it before when we have. And I've definitely fallen foul to this. I'm sure you guys have as well. So you hear something and it is hearsay, but we think, oh, that sounds like it's right. That sounds about right. And then you go on to talk to someone else about it, and blah blah blah, and you build from it. And then you realise, oh, actually that aspect was probably completely wrong. And I ignorantly chose to run with it rather than, because it reflected my beliefs, you ran with it, rather than digging a little deeper and finding out what the actual situation was. And then you end up with egg on your face.
Yeah, it's the confirmation bias. Yeah. Yeah, because it supports something you already internally think. You're like, oh yeah, it's true, yeah.
But I don't know about you, but I always find is, although it's not nice, the best way to learn is actually through embarrassment. Because if you go into a certain situation and everything's all happy and it's all great and blah blah, you sort of walk away from it thinking, oh yeah, I was right in that situation. But then the situation will happen and there wouldn't be necessarily any negative effects from it, but maybe you were wrong, but you don't learn from it. But then when something seriously embarrassing happens, I don't know if it's fear mixed in there, you get really embarrassed, you think, fuck, now I need to change because that was embarrassing, I'll never want that situation again.
I think that's part of why I give my opinions very much stated as an opinion, because I don't want anyone to sort of argue back at it and then be embarrassed that I was wrong. So it's always just this is what I think, but it's open to change, and I don't want to end up in a position where you're proved wrong, because I don't like that very much.
No, of course.
Oh, interesting. Okay, let's circle back to this then. So
This makes me worried.
Yeah. Me excited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Several things. Is that a manifestation of your conflict avoidance?
I think they're separate.
Okay.
I think the embarrassment thing comes from not wanting to be proved wrong, sort of wanting to be the person who's right. And when you go through sort of younger ages, sort of used to being right about things as well. I mean,
in your opinion, or
just
in fact?
Just in terms of education and tests and things, if you're doing okay with that sort of thing, then you can definitely get an inflated sense of I'm right about everything, and it can be very embarrassing when you're proved wrong. It feels like quite a fault. As one Sarah always likes to remind me of, it's primary school. Just one lunchtime,
She's never forgotten about it.
Oh, it never. One lunchtime, I became convinced that the sun revolves around the earth, and not the other way around.
How old were you?
I must be about 9.
Adorable.
And they spent the entire lunchtime telling me I was wrong, until afterwards, at the end of it, it clicked in my head, oh yeah, you're right. But that whole time, I was dying on this hill, I am right, I'm always right. And she still likes to remind me of that sometimes.
Well, I think the schooling system doesn't help in that respect, because it teaches you that
if you have a good memory, you're good.
Yeah, but it teaches you if you're wrong, you fail.
Yeah, as well.
That's a very good point.
Whereas,
I think that's why we always loved literature, English lit classes, and psychology, because it was a debate and it was knowing that there isn't a right answer.
Yeah, exactly. And in the real world, when you're wrong, that's your opportunity to learn and grow. Whereas it's sort of taught in school, you learn the lesson, you do the test, you either fail or you pass. Whereas in life, you do the task, or you have an experience, and that's when you learn. Does that make sense?
So in life, you win or you learn.
Yeah, I say that all the time. You either win or you learn. So either win, which is, it's great because everyone likes to win, but really you're not growing if you're always winning. But if you lose, that's your opportunity to learn and grow, isn't it?
And I think the number of things that can be put down to a right or a wrong is very, very few. Everything is a shade of grey in between, really.
No, exactly. No.
Other point for you, same there. While everything is said in here, most things that are said in here are said is an unspoken given that what we say is an opinion. And I welcome people to say otherwise, because then it just expands the conversation. Granted, it could be just that I'm more used to this format and just saying what I'm thinking. And also knowing as well as stating out loud that I'm not married to my ideas. I'll say a statement and then change my mind. As in, I'm challenging people to change my mind. So that could be another part of it, is why you might be reticent to say something because you're not used to this sort of format, maybe.
Yeah, you hear someone say something, especially when it's clipped up, and you think they're saying something that they think is 100% true, or it gets taken out of context, and it seems to say, I mean, it's just what like the media does. They could take a clip and it makes it look like this person said this thing, which actually has been taken out of context completely, or and it can change the way that people look at you.
I am glad you said that, because any person that takes a perception of someone else from something out of context, their opinion is irrelevant.
Yeah, I don't even listen to people when
No.
if that's their build-up.
Yeah, because if someone said something about X person and it's a clip from episode 704 of their podcast, if I'm curious enough, I'm gonna go listen to the whole thing.
Yeah.
So I can then figure it out, which is where you get people get demonized by saying something out of context. It's like, okay, because it's the tip of an iceberg that is cultivated to look a certain way, which is obviously not true of what they are. Like if people, but the polarizing thing about how I've done some of the clips we've done here, like the iPhone one, first of all, it's about phones, for God's sake. It's adorable that people get annoyed about it.
And that was my whole point, sort of, when I was talking about it, is that
It's ridiculous.
people lose their minds about it, and it's really not that.
It's so stupid. It's so dumb. But it's brilliant because it polarizes, because it gets people who are actually interested to know what's going on about it actually watch the episode. And equally, if it's people who are dumb enough to think that that 30-second clip sums up Max as a human, you don't want them in your life, and you don't want them interacting at all anyway, because it's just a lazy way to approach things. If you actually were curious enough, you had a mind to actually listen to everything, you go, okay, I see his point.
Well, it's like your boy Andrew Tate.
Prime example.
He's fallen foul to that massively in the media now.
Yeah.
There are a lot of things he has said that
Hasn't he been arrested for
stupid.
human trafficking?
That's the allegation,
again,
yes.
Released again, there's no actual evidence.
Yeah. Which is what's really...
There is probably some evidence.
There's not. Well, it's been going on for 2 years.
Yeah.
I'm not defending, or I don't know anything about the situation. However, it's been going on for 2 years, and they haven't got any type of concrete evidence that can bang him up. Now,
And obviously you two were involved in the investigation, so you know exactly what evidence they had to hand.
After my conversation with the lawyer this morning, for everything he said, that's misogynistic, that is provoking, that is polarising, I don't agree with it at all. If the allegations are absolutely true of what's against him, he should be locked up forever, 100%. On the flip side of it, if this is all bullshit, then you're like, okay, you then have to wonder why. Why has this been going on? And, you know, it's because he's such an outspoken character, and he's so bombastic and provoking, and women naturally don't like him, fair enough.
But also,
100%.
that tends to be because they're looking at the small clips of what he's saying.
Very true.
Which are, you know, as we said, some of them are more misogynistic, etc.,
Yes.
etc. But when you watch the full clip, often it's like a run-up to a bad joke, or...
Yeah.
You know, it's not actually his thoughts or what he's saying. It's someone's asked him a question or something, and he's gone on a bit of a rant about it. But then they've clipped 30 seconds of him saying women should all be in the kitchen or whatever like that.
Yeah.
And then obviously it makes him look bad because that clip just gets played over and over and over again.
Yeah.
But then when you actually watch the whole thing, often he's just joking about it.
So I've heard about him like 3 or 4 years ago. He was the couples podcast I listened to. They found clips of him and were just taking the piss out of him, saying his stupid shit. And he was on the show like a year after that. And he is his ridiculous self for the first 45 minutes. And I'm like, this is absurd, the things he's saying. And then like something like switches, and then he's like, okay, yeah, I'm a philosophy student, I'm a philosophy graduate, I'm a chess grandmaster, I did this, and this. He asks some really interesting questions, and he's really curious and personable, and he's really inspiring, really motivating for a lot of things he says. And I'm like, so he's either split personality, or Tate is a character.
Yeah.
He'd still be dangerous.
He 100% is dangerous. He's a kickboxing world champion. He'll fuck you up. But it's the nuance about knowing a person as well. Again, if his charges are correct, he's a vile human being. if they're not correct, it's the nuance about knowing him as a person. What he's actually done, if he's completely innocent of any crime, he's played the system of how to gain attention by being incredibly polarizing. But then equally, he's got some incredibly good points of how to live.
Well, it's law 6 of 48 laws of power, isn't it?
Mm.
Gain court attention at all costs.
Still need to read that.
It's a good book.
Really need to read that stuff.
That's what I see he's done in that situation. I think it's ended up probably backfiring slightly.
Slightly?
Well, quite a bit.
Quite horrifically, yeah.
And again, I don't know the ins and outs of his business and what he's done and how he's got there. So again, I can't really, like everybody, we can't really comment on his situation. However, what I can comment on is the parts or the content I've seen of his that is beneficial. Now, no one's perfect. Everybody has their, their good aspects and their bad aspects. But again, we've discussed this many times before, is you can learn from every single person you come into contact with. You can take their good aspects and use them to your advantage, and you can see their bad aspects as, look, that's how I'm not going to be. And there are a lot of things that I see of him and I'm like, I don't agree with that. I think that's ridiculous. For example, he thinks you should have multiple wives and stuff like that. That's his opinion. If he wants to live his life like that and he looks after all the women who he's dealing with, crack on, do that. And if he's not hurting anyone, I haven't got a problem with it. It's also not my life, so it's none of my business. I personally struggle to deal with one woman. So there is no way I'll be trying to get out there and have multiple women. But then on the good aspects, there's a lot of things he talks about of how you should build and grow yourself as a man, how until you build yourself up to create value, you are worthless in this world. Well, we've briefly touched on it before in one of our other podcasts. I still genuinely believe this until someone can give me some more evidence of.
Where do you stand on children then?
All children have value. Okay, let's put this. Everybody has value. Every single thing, life form, everything, plants, all sorts, everything has value in what it does. However, men, unless they protect, provide, and look after their family, they are effectively worthless. We're in a co-creating society here, and you have to bring something to the table in order to be part of a community or a system, right? That's what I say about women. They are born with the incredible ability to bring life into this world, and we are here, first of all, to procreate. So the women are the ones that can obviously bring life into this world. Obviously there's a male aspect that you have to have
30 seconds.
Exactly, yeah. It takes 30 seconds if you're lucky and you double your record. But because the women and ladies have got that, that's their real value already, or their worth. So, do whatever you want after that, but they don't really need to do anything more because they've already got that, a natural innate ability. Whereas for males, if you don't build yourself up physically, mentally and emotionally, you are a danger to everyone around you. That's how I see it, because if you don't build yourself up mentally, then you are dangerous because you have the more of a physical ability to cause havoc. If you don't build yourself up economically, you're a drain on everyone around you. You've got to bring something to the table, and if you're not bringing that, then what have you got to offer? And if you don't build yourself up physically, it's the physical and mental co-create together, don't they? So if you don't build yourself up physically, your mental aspect's going to be massively reduced, which means you're more likely to cause harm.
So would you say that starts from a certain age? Because if you're saying kids have value, we say that once they reach a certain age, the guy's like, right, you've now got to get your shit together effectively.
Yeah, well, I would say from the age of 16, definitely, males should have learned as long as they've got good role models. I'm not saying that everybody is lucky enough to have the role models that perhaps you and I have had growing up. That's another reason why we want to do this podcast, is that hopefully we can help other people out there that haven't had those opportunities in order to learn and grow from what we know. But I think you need to make a conscious decision, especially as a male, to better yourself in order to be a valuable part of society. Otherwise, what are you doing?
Would you say 16, or would you say when this is finished growing?
Definitely when this is finished growing. However, I think we will become conscious, really conscious to the fact that we can go out and do things for ourselves at 12, 13, 14?
I'm trying to remember that, because that was the one good thing about Freud with the id, ego and superego. What was the age he was saying for all of that?
There's different ages and different stages.
Your id was the initial one.
The id is and the ego and the superego are all parts of your psyche.
Yeah, so
And then the
stages of growing up.
stages were oral. Oh gosh,
So the
I've forgotten most of them. So
Yeah.
I practice.
no, that's fine. Like I say, yeah, because id was the awareness of just entirely yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Ego was awareness of others, and superego was the combination of your actions with others. Was that right? I think it's something like that. So I think it's actually might be a little bit later, when you are being like, okay, I have to act in a certain way that doesn't hurt other people.
Yeah, of course.
So it might be like 18, 19, 20, something like that.
Yeah, so it's a process, isn't it? It's not like you come to 16 and that's it.
Yeah.
But it's more like when you're 16, you're nearly a fully grown adult. At 16, even myself, who was very like a late grower, shall we say, even at the age of 16, I was probably pretty much at the height I was going to be for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So that's when the power of your body starts becoming available, shall we say, to the point where you tend to you are able to overpower people. Therefore, you need to have self-control over yourself by that age. Now, I'm not going to lie, I didn't really have. I would say this didn't all click for me till I was sort of 21, 22. But it's more because I wasn't looking at it and researching it myself. It'd been handy to know about these things a lot younger, so you can build yourself up into it. But it's a ladder, isn't it? It's a growing process as you grow up. But when you're younger, if you are lucky enough to have it impressed on you that you can affect the world around you. And that's what we all do when we go out and do things. We affect the world around us. So you've got to have a certain level of respect for yourself and for other people in order to travel about the plane to do good rather than do bad. And because of that, I think it's a responsibility for yourself and socially to have that self-control and have a good mindset and build yourself up economically as well.
So that ties into the Matthew Hussey approach. We say that men should have more control, or should exercise control over themselves.
We need more
This
control.
is from the podcast that you listen to, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, again, if females go out there and they don't have much control, the society can still function, or would still function, and it's unlikely that everything would get destroyed. However, if it was the other way, and males had no self-control, they would go out and destroy everything. Because physically, we can. We'd overpower everything else. Whereas if, take the dichotomy of, is it dichotomy, is that the right word?
Oh.
Of a female attacking her husband or her partner or whatever like that. Most blokes, I don't know if you've experienced it before, it's like, okay, that's annoying, don't do that. Yeah, it's unfair you're doing that, it's fine, blah, blah, blah. They're not really causing any harm. But if it were to be on the flip side...
If they had a weapon.
Yeah, but but you're going to be able to overpower and go, look, come on, stop. It's fine.
Based on personal experience, I would disagree.
In general.
In personal experience, I would say that it was... Yeah, it wasn't fun.
That was not fun. Even though it was dangerous.
It wasn't fun. It was dangerous. I wasn't scared for my life, but it hurt.
Yeah.
Being on the receiving end of it. But yeah, in general, yeah, you'd be right. It's a different outlook overall, but obviously it just depends on the circumstance, doesn't it?
Well, it depends if you know what you're doing.
Yeah. But then, in general, again, on the flip side, men are going to be able to cause more harm.
Yes.
Generally, yeah.
Overall,
they're
yeah.
going to be built to be able to.
Which is actually a failing in society, that we have less sympathy for men who are domestic abuse victims from their female partners than the other way.
Because you equate it to not being as serious. Because
exactly, because which is utter nonsense. In some situations, not all, most you're okay, but in some situations it's horrible because it takes. If a man psychologically has been made to feel weaker than the woman, he's then not going to fight back.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And it's going to be much more damaging because they are going to feel like they've failed to be a man, I suppose, in some ways.
And when they go out and operate in the outside world, they're probably more likely to be attacked, or probably more likely to be overpowered by everybody else.
So this happened to me in this situation, where it was again very minor, but I was in quotes the victim in that respect, and I didn't fight back because I was psychologically broken down beforehand. And
in terms of, because you're obviously told that you shouldn't.
No, I felt that or I was made to feel, whichever way around, that it was my fault. And it was at a time when I was weak, or made to be weak of character. So that when it did happen, I didn't do anything about it. Obviously, I'm not in that situation anymore. But it's one of those things that if I was how I am now, first of all, I'd just walk away and just never speak with that person again. But secondly, it's a case of obviously I would be able to defend myself straight away and fight back because I would have the personal sovereignty that I have right now. Yeah. Then I did not, so I didn't do anything about it.
Which is why it's so hard for people to leave domestic abuse settings, because they think it's their fault and it will happen wherever they go.
And
also they tend to love the person, hence why they're still there rather than walking away.
Yeah, exactly. And it makes it fucking hard to talk about.
And it's, in those situations, that's only like 1 to say 5% of the time you spend with the person. So then when you have more good times with them, you think, it's just that one time, or it's just like, that small percentage happens. As you said, it's probably going to be like this wherever else I go, blah, blah, blah. So it's not always considered as bad as it is when you're with that person, because you think, I still love them, and still had all these good times, etc.
But it's not just love either. You get other emotions, which is shame and fear and guilt, really, because they make it seem like it's your fault.
Of course, but that is a form of psychological.
Yeah,
abuse.
physical
Yes.
abuse never
Oh.
comes on its own.
No.
Yeah, it was both. So.
And like you said, it's difficult to talk about, but talking about it is so powerful.
Yeah.
And again, I don't know the statistics behind this. We've got to be very careful of how we say this, but I can imagine that the psychological abuse tends to come more from the female aspect, based on their physical ability generally being reduced. That's their weapon of choice.
I would imagine.
And let's give an example. You see it in schools. Is boys tend to physically fight, and whoever wins, that's the winner. Where with females, it tends to be their words, don't they? They will break people down psychologically with how they speak to them.
I'd say in schools, kids, if boys will be mean to girls as well. You don't get so many boys beating up girls in schools.
No,
very true.
That's rare.
But I can imagine most of the time, the boys being mean to the girls is actually because they fancy them and they don't know how to talk to them.
Sometimes
Yes.
they're just mean.
But I can imagine the boys that are that mean to the girls will tend to also be mean to the boys as well.
Or maybe fancy is too nice a
Yeah,
word for it.
maybe.
Maybe they're attracted to them, but if you're in a secondary school in a burgeoning, not understanding sexual way.
No, some people are just mean.
And there's us trying to be really complex and smart about it.
No, you are true. I was just,
No,
it's
again,
true in
it-
some circumstances.
It's
Yeah,
general,
of course.
like, when we talk about these things, it's all in general, isn't it? You know, there aren't going to be...
Because we can be specific for days on one topic, otherwise, because we're not going to get anything done.
Exactly. And there will be the odd one out that no matter what you do or no matter how hard you help them or how nice you are to them, they're always going to act in that manner, whether it's externally or their own internal thoughts that create that reaction in the outside world.
Seeing an overly aggressive or an abusive relationship in your parents when you're younger, or being in the receiving end of that when you're younger, makes people seek that out in their partner. Not because that's what you like, but it's a familiarity. You know what it is, and you will naturally effectively just smell out a person who's going to give you the relationship you saw or experienced when you were younger. It's like certain women who were abused when they were younger, or see abuse when they were younger, they will then smell out violent men who will then abuse them.
It's because they think it's normal. Or,
They think it's normal.
They will allow that to happen to them because that's what they're used to, that's the norm.
Exactly.
And I can't remember where I read this, but it was saying that women, not necessarily if they've had trauma, but if they didn't grow up in a loving environment, or they weren't loved properly by their fathers, that no matter how much you love them, they will never respect that because they've never understood it. Therefore, as much as you try and love them, they will resent that fact because they never had it when they were younger.
I wonder at what ages this would cover.
I guess it's up to
because I would
1 to
imagine
7, isn't it? Because that's your more formative years.
I would imagine it's not. Yeah, it's probably like that, or maybe
But
So
if you have it in your
had that
first
covered.
7 years, you're not going to have it in the next 7.
Well, yeah, I wonder. There has to be an age spectrum on there of like from what point to what point that it is important to have. Because it's not going to be like, oh, if he was a dick from 14 onwards, you're going to ruin forever. Like, but he was fine 1 to 5.
It's going to cause some damage.
But it's not that.
It depends.
I think you're onto something, but I think I wonder what the actual age nuance is.
We have the teenage brain, don't you?
Mm.
And that's quite well known as that. I did it. I'm sure everybody else did it. Or not everybody, but there's a large spectrum of people that did it. Is you get to that age where you're like, well, you're conscious and you can operate in the world, and you kind of remove yourself from the family. Not in a way like you don't want to be with them, but you're like, oh, I'm my own independent person now, and your parents tell you what to do, and you're like, I'm not doing that. Like the typical Kevin and Perry attitude, where you're like, I can't believe they're telling me what to do. I'm not having that. I'm going out with my mates.
Yeah.
And you realise later on down the line that your parents, well, I'm lucky enough to have that, not everybody is, but they love you more than your friends do. No matter what, they would go and die for you, whereas most of your friends, or when you're younger, a lot of your friends who you think will always be there for you, when the shit is a fan, they're nowhere to be seen.
When you're younger.
When you're younger, yeah. But then you learn and grow as I think you get to. My point is, I got to about 19, 20, maybe 21, and then that aspect goes away, and you're like, actually, no, the most important people in my life are my family. And then your friends are secondary. In my experience.
Everyone's different. Slightly define family differently.
But then your close friends become your family. That's
precisely
part of the family.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, yeah.
Had an issue with the idea of having the idea that you have to love and respect the people you're related to just because you're related to them.
My point. Sorry, maybe I should break down. Family are the people you know will be there for you.
Yeah, exactly that.
no matter what. It doesn't mean they have to be blood, but it's the people that you would class as your family who are the ones that will be there for you no matter what.
And then
when
like
shit
that
is the
sort
fan.
of purely social circle goes to the outer.
Yeah, and then purely social ones that again you learn when you're growing up and you go and just get pissed with them or whatever like that. You know, they're good fun to be around and they're good people while you're at the pub, but you know you couldn't call on them if you actually need them.
Yeah, I think we can all agree on that one.
Mm-hmm.
What were you bringing us on to?
So the question we were going to swiftly go on to from the previous points were, does everybody need therapy?
Need's an interesting word. I think it would benefit most people because you get to, I think not everyone puts the work into understanding themselves and who they are and how they relate to people, and it can just be a really interesting and helpful tool for that. And if you do know who you are and sort of understand how you work, what motivates you, know any issues you might have, any triggers, then I think you just go about your life in a much healthier, more productive way.
100%, because I'm quite open in most things I believe and talk about, which I wasn't when I was a lot younger. And I would have always argued that I don't need therapy. Why do I need therapy? I've never had nothing really traumatic in my life. Who's going to sit there and help me and tell me how to better my life? But more as I've grown up, I think it also depends the therapist you have as well, because not everybody is the same. But the point you made is it'd be interesting to know if there's certain psychological things and loops that I haven't identified in myself that perhaps an outward perspective or an outsider could show you, so that you could then work and build on.
Yeah, they like provide a sounding board and reflect what you're saying, your own words and your own ideas back at you, and then you can start to see patterns. And, like, it's such a British thing to think you only get counselling when something bad has happened. In like America, it's much more normalised to just go regularly, like in Cougar Town, when Jules just goes constantly all the time, just for
The chat.
basically. And every time that an issue arises, even a small one, they go and they talk it through, and although it's done for comedic effect and not always very helpful, the concept of we've got this issue that maybe we're struggling to work out, maybe we ask a third party to help us out with this, that's pretty healthy.
Would we argue that having one or two really close friends to talk your thoughts or concerns through would be an equivalent to therapy?
It can be,
I would
but
say
the
yes.
difference would be that therapists know how not to take on the issues themselves and how to sort of be helpful but not get too involved. Their friends who are not going to be trained in that might be really great, but they might also end up too involved and taking it on themselves, and it being a weight to them as well. So it depends on the issue.
They will take on the emotional burden, won't they? Because they will think, well, he said this to me now. Well, next time I see that person, I'm going to see them in a different light, or I'm going to treat them in a different way, or act in a different manner, or I'm going to do this to ensure that he doesn't feel like that.
Like when you were a manager and learned about stressful scenarios your employees were going through, you felt you had to do your best to try and fix it where you could. It's also who you are, but a therapist isn't going to take that home and let that stress become like something they carry as well, because they know it's sort of their job and they understand how, and they also have to go talk to their own therapist. You always have someone you're talking to debrief, essentially.
Yeah,
you
very
weren't
true.
debriefing.
No, I was taking on all the emotional stress as well.
So that's where the danger is.
It's fascinating. Therapists have their own therapists.
Yeah, you got to.
Well, they would need them, yeah.
Yeah.
I know someone who was a therapist, and the sort of things she was dealing with, she would tell me about them, and I'd actually say, look, don't tell me about this.
Yeah,
I said, I really want to help you here, but I don't want to know about it, because the type of things you're dealing with, she was dealing with like children and stuff like that. I said, if you tell me anything like that, I'm going to want to go and just fucking kill that bloke. Or, do you know what I mean? So I said, don't tell me, because I don't want to have that bouncing around in my mind. As much as, I'm cared for the person, and I thought I really want to help you, I was like, I can't deal with that type of stuff.
Yeah, and I've got quite a good memory, which is a blessing and a curse. So if things get put in it, I can't get back out again.
Yeah. And she would always say that I think bad experiences were like Velcro. I can't remember what she said about the good experiences, but it's the bad experiences you would remember and they'd stick on. They stick in your mind much longer than the good experiences. And that's why children that tend to have a lot of trauma when they're younger, basically there's not a lot you can do after the age of 7 because it's there and it's stuck.
Yeah.
It is. You just learn new ways to deal with it and to identify your triggers. And the other thing, I guess, therapists need therapists because they're not infallible and they're going to come across things that trigger them, and
yeah, of course, yeah.
they're just more aware, hopefully, of what is going to be an issue.
Of the loops and cycles.
I remember one of the things during my course, something you never thought about. One of the lecturers was telling us when you go into a setting as a therapist or a counsellor, you have to sort of consider what you're wearing because you want to try and be as neutral as possible. One of the key things was perfume. She said she had a client who was triggered by the smell of her perfume because it's the same one like his abusive mum used to wear or something.
Damn.
And you've got to think about all these aspects, especially smell being so powerful.
Yeah, olfactory sensors.
And consider all of these things you're taking into the room. You're not just going into the room as a person, as a blank slate, as a sounding board, even though that's going to be your role, because you have to go in as sort of who you are as well, but you've got to try and be as neutral as possible, so you're not accidentally triggering someone.
Wow.
And again, you won't know that.
No, you won't know
until you find it out, and they might never tell you.
It's just really interesting.
You must have a...
honestly, I think that was part of the reason it put me off. It's like, you mean I can't just go in wearing all my different perfumes and makeup and jewellery? And it was just a bit too much responsibility, I think, at the time.
Yeah, you must have a unwavering want to help people to be able to sacrifice all of that.
Yeah, but it's like I said with that, that friend, and I was like, how do you deal with it? How do you do that every day and not have any type of like outburst or as I say, physically go and do something about it? Like I would be jumping up the doors.
I fully know that feeling, my friend. I know what that feels like. But it's like a friend of ours who's what does she do? She's not a neurosurgeon, is she?
She's not a neurosurgeon, no.
What does she do?
She's a nurse practitioner, but specialises in neuro wards and things.
Yeah, so she works on all head injury stuff. What was what she was saying like a year ago, where they could literally see through their head, kind of thing, because the injury was that bad.
Was this the one where they kept doing it to themselves?
Yeah, they kept hurting themselves. They kept like braining themselves because they were
braining themselves.
The patient, victim, whatever, kept injuring themselves because there's a screw loose. So they kept like bashing their own head in so that they could. When our friend went to like try and to see what was going on with them, they could see into their head.
Jesus Christ.
And you're just like that's another.
Yeah.
Just the amount of she must have seen dead people.
Since she was a teenager working
My
in community
God.
care.
10 years of seeing dead people.
Yeah, it must be hard.
But again, yeah, you must
And
have
criminals and victims, and I don't really know how she does it.
Blimey. Well, there you go. That's the unwavering want and desire to help people.
What's your thought then on therapy?
I think it depends on. But I think for me personally, I think I don't need it as a sounding board, but I think it's just like a brain dump of just talk about things that have happened like in the past, as opposed to what's going on now. Like what's going on now, I mean, I've got you guys to talk to, so like if I've got an issue about something that's happening right now, I'd speak to you. I think it'd be a good one for me to talk about past things, because then I'm not, as you say, not giving the emotional burden to other people. Unless you ask for it, in which case it's your own fault. So if you ask to know about something, it's your own fault for hearing what it is. So
typically, you feel better for talking about it.
I do, yeah. But again, we don't know what the emotional toll is going to take on people hearing it. So
and
that's why you have me, part girlfriend, part counsellor.
There you go.
But then, is it easier to discuss certain things with people you don't know? Again, I can't remember where I read this, but it's quite a common theme when people meet new people that they will tend to tell them more aspects about their lives than they would tend to tell one of their loved ones.
Interesting.
Whether it's because they're trying to impress them or trying to project a certain image of themselves to that person.
I think it's more you get to tell them someone who doesn't know you, doesn't have an image of who you are already. And you could tell them anything, and it's not going to change the way they think of you because they don't have anything to think of you already.
Yeah.
It's very freeing.
Yeah, there's no preconceived notion either way.
Yeah, and they don't have any investment in your life. They don't really care what happens next. Well, they do. I'm assuming as a human, you would care about other humans, but it doesn't affect them what happens in your life so much. So they can just listen and. The reflecting back, that's sort of there's all these different methods of counselling and schools of thought, but for me, just reflecting back what they're saying and helping them to make sense of things, and it would be the way I would do it. And it's sort of, so it is you doing the work. So they're there, but they are there to be a mirror in a way, and to help you see connections you haven't seen before, but you're doing the work. I forgot what my point was.
No, that's the point in itself, yeah.
Now, should we move on to the next one? Now, when you made this point, we'll go through it as we dissect it. The point was how women are expected to be everything these days.
Not these days.
You reckon forever?
No, not necessarily. Just don't think it's new.
Mm-hmm. So who wants to jump on that bomb?
It's because we were talking about it earlier, because I haven't seen the Barbie movie, but I've seen the monologue that one of the characters goes through, which I thought was interesting.
Which was?
Was it Barbie by any chance?
I don't know what character it was in Barbie. It's America Ferrera's character.
I only say that because I thought they were all Barbie, weren't they? Okay.
I think it goes into the human world at some point, so there's definitely some real people.
Oh, is there?
Yeah, I don't really know the plot.
I probably won't be watching that one, so I won't know. Depends if I'm forced to. Against my will.
He's just saying this because he can't wait. He won't shut up talking about the Barbie film.
I've already got my pink suit ready.
There you go.
Yeah, I can't remember how it really got onto it, but I think part of the everything aspect comes from when women started to work as well.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas before the role was they would be, homemaker, kids, men would go out and work. When women started to work as well, it didn't equalise, so that the housework and looking after the kids still primarily remained the women's job. And it's something I think about these days as well, like the 40-hour work week is designed because
40 hours? Jesus.
36, 40 hours.
36 hours? Fucking hell.
Is that it?
Yeah. It's like 2 days.
Was designed decades ago when one part of the household, one member of the household is doing that, where the other is doing the cleaning and looking after children and cooking and all like the life admin stuff. So it's designed for one person to be doing that and one person to be doing everything else, and now we're trying to do everything all at once, and it wasn't really ever designed to be like that. So when you're feeling like a failure because you can't do a full-time job and keep your house spotless and do all the cooking and look after your children, you're not, because one person was supposed to do all of that in the first place.
And do you think, so my argument for this, or not necessarily for it, or just to discuss it, is I think the aspect has gone on to the males as well, is now everybody's expected to be everything.
Yeah,
whereas
a lot
previously,
of these days.
previously there were, I don't like using this word because it I don't necessarily believe it, but it obviously enrages some people. But gender roles is, you know, the male will do one aspect and the female will do the other aspect. And my point on it being is, you can only serve one master. If you try and serve two, you fail at both. We've said that many times on the pod before. Is you can't be an expert in two different aspects. So I think there is value in one person having one role and one having the other, because then one can completely master this role and be the best at that role they possibly can, and on the flip side the other person can do the opposite. Whether it's the woman goes out and works and the male takes on the household role, it doesn't really matter which way it is. But I think when we all try and do everything, you can't be the best at that than if you were just focusing on one thing rather than trying to focus on 5 different things.
Maybe. I think it's going to differ from every person, every family, but you're right, I don't think it's possible to do it all and do it all well, because there isn't enough time in the day, really.
Yeah, you can't get it done in that respect. It's is there something this phenomenon that is to be apportioned blame of, or is this just how things have evolved?
I think it is an awareness thing. Like at the minute, there's so much emphasis on having side hustles, and it's all about the grind. And God, that's exhausting.
And even from the female aspect, you get that as well.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
The amount of, like, especially on TikTok, I think, and Instagram, there was a whole thing about, this is my 5 to 9 routine. So everything they did from 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. before they started their 9 to 5 work day. And it was these people saying they were doing getting in these workouts, and they were doing some cleaning, and they were reading, listening to podcasts and meditating. No one is doing all of that every day. But you see it and you think, well, I'm not doing that, so I'm failing. And I know you do get up early.
You're talking to two people that...
Yeah, that's us.
That.
You don't actually work a 9 to 5 work day currently.
No.
You don't get up at 5 a.m. every day and do that all the time.
Very true.
Yeah. You aspire to, and some days you do it. You don't do it every day, and to say that you would be unrealistic. And to expect other people to do it or call them a failure if they don't is not something you would do either.
Very true. So are they explicitly saying if you don't do this, you're a failure?
No, it's the implication that this is the ideal, and if you're not living up to it, then it's...
So
what you're doing, it's like you're wasting time. Oh, you're sleeping till 7 a.m. What a waste.
Well, again, my argument for that would be is that without attaching emotion to the word failure, is I did that for 4 years straight, and my life turned around so quickly by doing that, getting up early. I wasn't fortunate enough to do the workouts before, but I would tend to get up early and then do my workout after work or something like that. But I found that it improved my life massively having that extra couple of hours in the day. And over the last 3 to 4 months, I've been getting up later, and I've seen a massive reduce in my performance, which I'm not pleased about. And therefore, I would argue that compared to my previous self, I'm failing myself, because I can do it, I know I can do it, and I need to get back on track to be doing it, because again, time is the only thing we really have in this life, and it's finite. And if you're not maximising your time, in my opinion, with progression and bettering your life and those people around you, then you are failing your reason for being here. Again, none of us know the reason we were put in this place and time. But if you're sat there doing fuck all, not achieving anything, then in my personal opinion, that is a total waste.
I think you're fine to have your opinion, but this is also a standard you're setting yourself.
This is for me. I don't look at anybody else. I think, I do look at certain people, and I think, look, you could do the same thing, and if you want to improve your life, then this is what I would advise to do. But if you're not looking to do that, absolutely fine. Do whatever you want. It's your own life. You can do what you want.
There's definitely a difference where someone is maybe not utilising their time effectively and complaining that they're not being productive and getting it done.
They're the ones.
But there's also a difference when you're sleeping until a reasonable hour in the morning, doing your 9 to 5, having maybe a bit more of a relaxed schedule, but you're happy with your life, and that is fine.
And
that's
100%
but
that is
fine.
the thing
you're
that
happy
you
with what it
don't
is.
get advertised.
Yes.
It is
If
100%
you're
fine.
not happy with your life and you're not doing anything about it,
Yeah,
you
no,
are
I
the
completely
only
agree.
one
If
you
you
can
complain
blame.
and you're not doing anything to try and change it, then that's one of the most frustrating things in the world.
And this is the thing that annoys me. I've always loved my sleep. Always have done. Like when I was a kid, I think this is the reason why my parents had a child so quickly after having me, is I slept. Most kids were like
tricked
up
them.
whining and being independent. I just slept the whole time. So let's have another kid. My brother, total opposite. Didn't sleep. You know, I don't know if he was crying all the time. He was a baby, so probably.
So
he
you hear
just-
that, you little shit?
and it was a complete opposite to me. My point on that is growing up, I've always loved my sleep, so I want to get as much sleep as I possibly can. However, since I've got into this process, I've learned, you know, they tell you need 8 hours sleep a day. I've learned if I have 8 hours sleep a day, I am far more tired and sluggish throughout the day than if I sleep for 6 hours.
Yeah, I think everyone's got to find their optimum, and it will be different for everyone.
Everybody's different.
I mean, and sleep's a whole episode in itself, but it's the setup to sleep is how you do that is so important. Like for me, if I put my phone on the other side of the room and I read for 2 hours, I can have 5 hours sleep and have a 90% recovery.
We should stop watching The Mentalist.
We really should stop doing that. It's such a good show. But yeah, if I do that routine, then I can go to bed at midnight, wake up at 5, ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
Or I can do like last night, where I think I got like 7 hours and 45, and I was like, which was partly probably because of the nightmare, but still, I was kind of like, it wasn't the optimum performance level there. So just as you say, just having the number that you're aiming at, like a lot of things, is not a good metric, because the quality, not quantity.
Well, I've also found proper scheduling and planning of your day helps massively. You know, in terms of if you get into a routine of doing the same things every day, although it's not necessarily that exciting, it's where I see the most progression. When you're all over the place and everything's different, especially this time of year, I'm doing like events and stuff like that, so my schedule changes all the time, so I can't get into the gym when I want to. You know, I tend to, in the mornings I get up, go to work, get the lads out, then I'll go to the gym, and then that sets me up for the day, and then I'll have another 8, 9, 10 hours working, and it helps me build that up, because I fucking hate going to the gym after work. There's nothing I hate most than finishing a long day's work and then going to the gym.
I agree.
So I just don't think my mind is there for it. My body's obviously there, and it physically can do the same things, but
I think, is that because you find you're on your feet during the workday and moving around and...
probably, but even like
Start
when I'm in the
interest.
office, I find it more, when I'm in the office all day, I'm more tired
Yeah, it can definitely
Than
be exhausting.
if I'm out and about moving.
Because your eyes physically hurt.
True.
Yeah,
Probably doesn't have looking at the
hurts.
computer
Your
all
body
day.
aches from sitting down.
Yeah.
I find that climbing after work feels good because I have a lot of energy because I've just been sat down all day.
Mm.
And climbing's good because it's a stretch as well as a calisthenic workout.
Mm. It's just nice to not be in front of a screen.
Yeah.
No, exactly.
Your hands covered in chalk. Let's go.
Yeah.
But it's routine, I think, is massively key. And I think we do learn that from the schooling system. As much as I like to poo-poo the schooling system for many aspects, you do learn proper like scheduling.
Yeah, the routine for
And
sure.
I think that's positive for everybody, really.
With the
Can be. Well, I think I will always argue that everyone's got something different.
Of course, in general though. In
Yeah.
general, remember.
with the like you were saying about people are expected to have all these things and these side hustles.
Well, not like it's seen as the ideal.
And it's seen as if you don't have it, you're a failure. It's
You're not making the most of yourself, yeah.
it's something we were talking about before. Like as Max was saying, everything he does is for him. You don't advocate. If people want advice, then he's gonna say, "Well, this works for me. Try it."
But if you don't take it, I don't care.
Yeah. Also.
And I won't bother again.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I'll be like, that's fine.
And equally, okay, this bit worked, that bit didn't. You know, adapt it or whatever. But it's the comparing yourself to other people is the mistake, and that's the folly as well. If people are, there's two things wrong with what you were saying there is that you've got people who are proselytising for certain things, which is utter nonsense, because
that's a fancy word.
Advocating or saying this how I do it is the way and the only way. That's nonsense. It's like Bible bashes in the street. That's a proselyte, and so they shouldn't be doing that. But equally, it makes you compare yourself to them, because comparison is the thief of joy. You shouldn't measure yourself against other people, because if I measure myself against Max for any number of metrics, I'm going to hate myself, because he can live like he's heavily stronger than me, and obviously he's more successful in his entrepreneurial business than I am. But for both of those things, it's because he's been doing both of them longer.
Exactly.
And he's been focused on both of them longer. But it's absurd for me to compare myself to him, because the only thing I've got to do, the only thing that needs to happen to change that is time. That's it. And just get him to stick at it.
Time and consistency.
Yeah, but if I look at him right now, I'll be like, oh, damn it, he's so much better than me at all this. But it's an easy thing to change it, so there's no point in...
Well, you're also doing different things.
Yeah, but it's not. For the terms of this point, it's irrelevant. If I was doing nothing, I could do the exact same as Max. But it's a stupid thing to compare myself, because actually, no, you at that age, it is a good point, because we are on different paths. Because there's no point in comparing, the letter A to the letter Z. There's two different things.
What were you saying earlier about circuit boards?
I was trying to make an analogy that it's stupid trying to compare people together. You've got a beginning point and end point for everyone. I was trying to say that
it was a complicated machine of different circuits inside it.
Yeah, it's life is a giant circuit board for everyone living on it, and we've all got. It's not just everyone is on linear lines going back and forth, and everyone's not on the same linear line, because then the machine wouldn't work. Everyone's on different lines, and it's not just 2-dimensional; it's 3-dimensional as well. So one person can be going like this to here, or one person can go like that, and then up and around everything, because it's just silly comparing one Y to another Y.
And at the base of it, everybody wants different things.
Yeah.
So the same thing is, if I was going to compare myself to you, we would have to have our goals exactly what we want aligned in the same manner.
Yeah.
And then if they are exactly aligned in the same manner, and I think you're ahead of me, then I'd be like, okay, well, I'm going to do that. But I don't have to.
Yeah.
But if that's what I want, that's why I think we have... I don't like to use the word heroes, because I think that takes the power away from yourself. But people you admire is, if you want to be a certain way, then, and somebody else has already achieved it, well, then you should look at them and how they've done things. You might not necessarily have to do exactly the same thing they've done, but you can take certain aspects of what they do and then incorporate into your life in a way to operate in order to achieve whatever it is you want to get.
So stop comparing yourself to other people.
I didn't say I did.
And also,
now.
one thing I've found is that gratitude is a massive aspect that I think a lot of people, in my opinion, probably because I'm reflecting it back to myself, is quite often I'm so focused on the goal that I want to achieve that I forget what I already have achieved, and then sometimes you can get yourself down.
Very easy to do that.
You can get yourself down because you're like, well, I'm not where I want to be, because I'm not looking back and thinking, oh look, this is what I've already done, which is something I try to do at least once a month, is especially when I'm getting into these situations where I feel that I haven't done what I need to do, is look back and say, look, maybe I'm not at the level where I want to be, but I'm doing everything I can in order to get to that level. If I'm not, identify why I'm not doing it and how I can get that back into my daily routine, because everything's cycled, isn't it? You go through a cycle of 3-6 months or however long it is where you do everything you're supposed to do, and then something happens, life changes, and you sort of slowly, those cycles come out, and you've got to bring yourself back to that level of discipline, I guess, to keep pushing yourself forward to get where you want to go. But again, you can get caught up in the not achieving what you want. So if you practice gratitude as much as you can, really I should do it daily, is think about all of the great things, probably in the mornings, probably the best time to do it, with your affirmations, is just ensure that you've got in your mind that you have achieved a lot, and it will help keep your positive demeanour there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think I tend to do it more at the end of the day, because
Yeah.
I find that's when I'm more likely to be sort of beating myself up for not having done the things I was planning to do, or start spiralling about bigger things. I can remember like the little wins that I've had in the day that make me remember it wasn't all just a colossal failure or a waste of time, and the bigger things. And I mean, sometimes I wake up in the morning and like look around the room and think, like, I still can't believe this is where I live. I bought a flat. It's crazy. So much space.
Yeah.
Yeah, little reminders are definitely helpful.
And
And
it
it's
just,
so easy to take things for granted.
no, and that's a massive one, taking things for granted. And again, goes back to the point of, if you don't really appreciate what you have done or the people you have around you, you can be constantly, does it say the Joneses or something, keeping up with the Joneses?
Yeah.
If you're constantly looking at what other people have that you don't have, obviously it's going to get you down. But if you just look at what you have done, what you've achieved, and how far you've come, then it's going to completely change your perception on your current situation.
Because success is measured very differently to everyone.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So you need to establish for yourself what it is that you actually want, and then that will avoid you looking at other people thinking, oh, I've got to have what they have.
And most people never do that.
Mm.
That's why I always say to you is like, look, we write it down, and then you've got a clear-cut idea of where you're looking to go. And if you
Yeah.
never do that, then you're going to be here, there, and everywhere. But once you've got an idea of where you want to go, you can then make a plan in order to achieve it.
Yeah. So
Yeah, where you want to go and what makes you happy.
Yeah, and you break it down from there.
And you know that it's likely to change as you're going through the process. But as we said before, if you don't start and you don't do something, nothing will happen. So you've got to start somewhere, wherever it is. Take that step today to try and build whatever ladder it is. And if you want to change halfway through, brilliant. Well, I've learnt this, so I can take that to there. And actually, I don't want to do that anymore. But you know, I've got this, so I can move to that. Thank you for coming, Jess.
Yeah, pleasure as always.
Nice to
Thank
see
you
you.
for joining. Thank you everyone for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and you'll get some more awesome content like that we have here. Until next time.
See you soon.